Okay. I'd call the UW Extension meeting to order, 8:30 on July 1st. All members are present. Matt Peisler is excused. I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as published and approve the minutes from the last June 3rd meeting.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Moved by Gary, seconded by Chuck to adopt the agenda and approve the minutes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Has anyone received any public input? I have not. Any written?
No, no communication.
Okay. Uh, Item 6, educator reports. Everybody should have the written narratives from the educators. If there's any questions or comments on the reports or any comments from the educators, we would open the floor. Excuse me.
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Chuck, anything?
I don't really have any questions, just one comment, I guess, about, last night Peninsula Pride Farms had a little gathering on the Paul Cornett, part of the Cornett farm, and they were talking mainly about planting corn into the situation was planting corn into a green cover crop, which was an alfalfa field. They waited until the alfalfa started coming up this spring, and then they sprayed it with Roundup and glyphosate, and then they planted corn right in it, and they were a little bit hesitant, but it's, according to Paul Cornett, it's one of the finest cornfields he's got around. It's almost waist high right now on him. He said even in some corners of that particular field that have some very hard red clay, it's doing phenomenally well, and they're really pretty excited about it. And he said next year he's going to do it on at least 100 acres
Oh,
of stuff. So it was a good session. There was I'd say about a dozen people that were there, farmers, asking some really great questions about cover crops. And I guess I bring it up because of a lot of the brown water and stuff we're seeing in the rivers and things is coming from the runoff. And, last year was such a horrendous year. I don't think they got as much cover crops in as what they wanted. And this spring, we had some rains, we had some heavy rains at some times that just, even crossing the Kewaunee River on my way here this morning, it's still brown, and we haven't had rain for a week. Just wanted to bring that up.
yeah, those rain events really drunk. Is there anything from the agents that you guys wanted to highlight from your reports that it was particularly fun or challenging or anything? I think they're all doing a really fine job, especially in this environment of working remotely, and I just want to tell them, from my point of view, thank you very much for that kind of work. It's really difficult circumstances, everything seems to take longer, is more difficult, more complicated. I'll get to it more in my report, but there is a little bit of loosening on the part of the UW on allowing program or meetings of people, and we can sponsor programs where there is basically no contact between participants or very socially distanced, and the number of people gathered is 10 or under. And I've approved several of those already for the educators in the Kewaunee County. So we are moving a little bit in that direction. But now with the numbers coming back up, it's anybody's guess if we're going to actually be able to move into a phase 2 where you can meet with under 50 But right now, I think that's kind of up in the air. It's probably a week by week, looking at the numbers and testing everyone's tolerance. So,
I just have a question for Renee about, have you been involved or have with any discussions with like the school districts about what they're planning on doing in the fall for opening school, or aren't you in touch with that?
No, I mean, I work more with the parents, not so
Yeah.
much with the school leadership. Yeah. I happen to be on a school board for my children's parochial school. So their approach might be a little bit different than the public schools. So they're putting some I'm working on it. I'm working on it from that angle with the school board, but it's going to be different from every aspect. It's interesting though. One of my high school age babysitters is involved in some extracurricular activities, sports and other activities. And those babysitters have been very busy with school activities getting together. So I think it'll be challenging for schools to, work with parents who are coming from very different perspectives on the situation. Some that their children are very engaged throughout the summer with lots of school activities, and then other parents who maybe have kept their children more more isolated during this time. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'll touch base though with a few more of my teacher friends and see what I can find out. But I've been getting a lot of questions from parents. The focus that I've been taking right now is, just helping to provide information to parents on, how to talk to your children about this time of kind of crisis, and how to alleviate some of their fears and concerns. If the children are hearing worry in their parents, they may then fear going back to school too. So just developing some talking points and some resources that parents can prepare their children for coming back together, so that they don't, when they're brought back together, that they're not coming together in a sense of fear. Because the last thing we need is children to be fearful while they're attending school. We want them to be feeling safe at school so that they can learn. So that's where I've been focusing right now, and I'll be in touch with teachers soon then to help them also add to that conversation with the students when they're returning.
Thank you.
also have Laura, when you guys are done with your questions and stuff, we have the USDA food distributor
Okay.
program.
So if there's no more questions, we can move to the USDA food distribution program.
Good morning. I heard there were some questions about that program. It is, as you know, a USDA program called Farmers to Families. And it was started in response to several issues going on early in the pandemic. One was that there was a lot of unused food that restaurants and schools had planned to serve, but were unable to serve. And there were farmers, of course, very concerned about continuing distribution of the food that they were producing. At the same time, I'm sure you all remember going to the grocery store and finding that, all the chicken was gone, or all the broccoli was gone, or something like that. Um, well, that impacts our food pantries because often they rely on excess produce to supplement what they're able to purchase. And of course, if there is no excess, then that will mean there is no food that can supplement what was often donated by grocery stores like Walmart and others. So that left a lot of food pantries kind of in the lurch. So the USDA program was hoping to not only support the farmers by purchasing that food that they were growing and unable to distribute at that time, and also alleviate some hardship among families, low-income families who would be dependent on that food. And then there were people who were suddenly like without a job or without a paycheck or whatever, and needed the help as well. So what happened in our region is this: the USDA had this great idea for this Farmers to Families program, but they were delivering entire semi truckloads full of food. Most of our pantries would be entirely unable to handle or process semi truckloads full of food. So in some counties, you know, like if you are in Sheboygan County or Milwaukee County or Racine, you have what would be called a food bank, which is like a warehouse of refrigeration. We don't have that in any of our counties in this region. So we had a group in Manitowoc, an organization, nonprofit called Grow It Forward. They partnered with Northern Cold Storage, which is a refrigerated warehouse. And they were then able, with some grant funding and donations, they were able to enlarge the refrigeration space in that facility to accommodate the amount that they would be getting. So that happened in early May. They had their first delivery. The problem initially was, okay, we've got all this food. How do we get the word out to people that we have this food? And they were trying to do a lot of different things to spread the word. But ultimately, the CEO, Amber Dogs, contacted Extension and said, what can you do to help me get this food out to the people who need it? So we started doing some information through the school food service and ADRC, and then we reached out to individual pantry managers, including the Kewaunee County Food Pantry and the Lakeshore Community Pantry, and talked to the managers there to see what they could accept. Our biggest obstacle was there is no pantry that even has a refrigerated truck. So, I mean, ideally, we would be able to deliver, each family could get 5 pounds of meat and 5 pounds of, I'm sorry, not 5 pounds, 25-pound box of meat and a 25-pound, or it varies, but somewhere around there, box of dairy products, and the produce, which is also another big family-sized box. But we don't have a truck. So what we were able to do is get some van loads of produce to those pantries, and they were able to keep those overnight and then distribute them at their next day that they were open. It worked. It has been working really well. We used networking, like Renee sent out a ton of emails and announcements to make sure families in Kewaunee were aware of the distribution. My colleague Imelda Del Chambre, who is bilingual in Spanish, called Spanish-speaking families to make sure they knew and knew that they could come and safely. So, and would understand the protocol. So that increased distribution as well. So we've been very successful. Ken Marquardt and Dan Balch are working together really well on this project to make sure that there is food available. And they've been increasing the number of families that are coming to take advantage of it. So clearly there is still a need. So if you have other questions, shoot, let me know.
I'm looking at the screen behind the guys and it looks like they might have lost contact with us.
Awesome. So I just blathered on for 20 minutes and they didn't hear any of it, right?
No, I think it just happened in the last minute or two.
There she is.
Oh yeah, there you are. Did you guys, I don't know, did you catch the whole thing or should I start over and continue?
You wouldn't have to start from the beginning. I don't think we got the whole thing. It interrupted you in mid-sentence.
I think it stopped at when
Okay.
you're talking Spanish-speaking people.
Okay, yeah. That was Imelda Del Chambre. She is a nutrition educator in Door County, and she also comes to Kewaunee. So she reached out to those folks so that they could understand what the offering was. There are no requirements. You know, you don't even have to sign a paper. It's free to anyone who comes to the distribution site, which relieves anxiety for people. And also, you know, if you are new to the experience of poverty, essentially, you know, if you are new to that, it takes a while to understand what the resources are. So having this food available to anyone who comes was a very good idea. Then I mentioned that Ken Marquardt from the Kewaunee County Food Pantry and Dan Balch, who is in Kewaunee at the Holy Rosary Lakeshore Food Pantry. They've been working together, and the increase has been pretty dramatic. We started out delivering about 50 boxes to each site, and now they're working together, and we are delivering over 140 just to Kewaunee County Food Pantry. And then they are looking now to increase that because there is a lot of interest in this program. So to me, that says something about the number of people who are either short in terms of, you know, meeting their needs, but for each month, or concerned. And we expect that to increase because SNAP eligible people eligible for food stamps, were given an increased allotment in the month of May, and I believe again maybe in the month of June. I'm not entirely sure about that, but that has ended. So there's some concern that, you know, there will be people who don't have enough money because not everyone has been able to return to work.
I guess my comment on that is that it's kind of like a double-edged thing. You know, you're happy that you have a program that can get the food to the people who need it, but you're sorry to hear how many people need it. You know what I mean? It's tough to hear a number that's real high, because I don't like to hear about that many people in my community that are not well off enough that they can afford to purchase for them.
Absolutely, yes. And my concern is that more rural, isolated people, elderly people, people living alone may be unable to get to those pantries during their limited hours of operation. Or if you happen to have a job that conflicts with the hours of operation, you may not be able to get that food and may still need it. So that issue and the fact that there is more food available, but we can't get it here because of the refrigerated truck issue, that's problematic and concerning. I think we're working on it, but it's a difficult problem. I mean, those trucks are like 30 grand. So if you know of anybody who has a refrigerated truck sitting around and they'd like to donate it for a couple hours, let me know. I know in Door County, they worked with a beer distributor, and that company distributed food, which was awesome.
Has there been any interaction between the Human Services Department as well as then through extension? I mean, the Human Services Department is also dealing with a lot of disadvantaged people in that area. So, I mean, is there communication there at all?
I believe they are aware. Renee, do you want to speak to that? Because I know you sent out a lot of information.
Yeah, Chuck, I talked to, both the economic support workers and the Forward Service Corporation staff who run the Wisconsin Works program. So I'm in touch with them on a regular basis. A couple of those ladies are right downstairs from us there. And, they're aware of, where the food pantries are and the changes in the hours. So they're sharing that information with the people that they're seeing. And then they're also, they they continue to, they have these PBE, the pandemic EBT right now too. So some of our colleagues, I recently even reached out over to Brown County because one of our FoodWise colleagues there has done a nice video to explain to families how to use their EBT, which is like their food stamps or food share card, how to use that at the farmers markets. So it explains very nicely how to shop the Broadway Farmers Market in Green Bay and extend and really stretch their dollar. So that video then was posted on one of our Kewaunee County sites for parents to and participants to see, so that it just furthers the education. We're doing a lot of financial education right now about helping parents, and families stretch their dollars or look to other resources to manage their finances right now.
Great, good. Has there been any, I'm hearing like with that, a video or whatever, I don't know which way to look here. I'm looking at this screen, but I should be looking that way.
Yeah.
As far as like using other social media, Facebook or something like that, and put some things out.
Yes, I know that we have done that already, and for some people, Facebook is an excellent way of communication. For others, particularly some of the elderly people or people that don't have very good connectivity or not familiar, they just don't use Facebook. We've used like individual phone calls. We've posted things, we've posted things at the food pantry so that like signage, so they know next week the delivery will be on such and such a date. And that helps as well. So we try to do a multifaceted approach to hit different people who have different ways of staying connected.
Sounds great. Thank you, by the way, for all of that work. That's terrific.
Yeah, it's good to be able to do something that is a good program, is going to help a lot of different people, and to be able to, oh, that's my dog, and to be able to partner on it. I'm going to mute before she starts barking.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to department head area reports.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, of course, before the meeting, I told these guys I was retiring at the end of August, and there will be an interim area director assigned. She already has been assigned. She hasn't really started yet. It's Judy Knudsen, who is currently the area director for Brown County, and Knudsen. And Judy has many years of experience, probably more years of experience than I do, and as a department head and as an educator as well. So she'll be doing a good job, and we've asked one of the staff persons, Jill in this case, to serve as what we call a point of contact and mostly liaisoning with Judy, so Judy has someone to lean on for day-to-day in the office kind of activities, but Judy will be the overall, basically the replacement for my position until they can refill it. And UW is still under a hiring freeze, and like Chuck was mentioning, that means different things in different contexts, but the main impact on an area like this one has been that the open positions for an ag agent in Door County, now a new opening in Manitowoc County because the ag agent there is retiring the 3rd of August. And those openings, I am working with Matt and my boss and supervisor in Madison, and trying to get permission to move forward with those positions as quickly as possible. But right now they're being very conservative and very cautious, and they are going to, Matt has told me he is interested in trying to repost and rehire someone for my position. But in order to do that, he needs to seek a waiver from the dean to get over the hiring freeze. And so it's something they're working out. But in the meantime, Judy is going to serve as our department area director as an interim. And as I also mentioned, there is some loosening up of, and this has been planned for a while and it's just sort of started, is that for programming that we would like to do, our agents would like to authorize or work with a group of 10, say 4-H leaders or volunteers on a project, or the volunteers themselves want to have some sort of meeting that would be educational in nature and that Extension would support. And we can authorize those if they're meeting all the social distancing and safety precautions, and the number of people concentrated in one area at any time is 10 or less. So we are able to make a little bit more progress in that direction. Although with the numbers of COVID cases going up the way they are in Wisconsin, right now it's doubtful, or it's questionable whether or not Extension will be able to go to what they call their phase 2 back to work kind of process, which would have been in July, and we could have gone to 50 and under meetings as a limit instead of 10, and that is still sort of contemplated, planned for, and desirable, but with the numbers of COVID cases going up, that might be postponed. So a lot of it depends on those state numbers and how things are going. And that's pretty much where we're at. It's at the state level with the COVID virus. They're still working through it. And as I mentioned, our educators in this area, and I think all over the state, are doing a really bang-up job, a good job of showing how you can conduct programming and maintain communication with your stakeholders remotely. And I said it's not easy. It's much more difficult and complex, but it's being shown that they can be successful doing it. So the next on the meeting, joint meeting, any questions about our updates or anything what Extension is, the university is doing?
Just thanks for all the adjustments.
Boy, yeah, big time. Our joint meeting with Door County, that's something that under this situation where we won't, really for sure, we will not have a Door County ag agent to throw into that mix for that meeting. And the PAR superintendent, she is brand new, just started in June, and so Erica and I were wondering if it's really a worthwhile idea to go through with that meeting. So I wanted to throw it out, and I think Door County would still like to meet you guys, and and of course we want them. I would like them to see or get a glimpse of the programming that Erica is doing, because that is one half of the skill sharing agreement that we've had with Door County for a long time. But so there might be some value in doing something like that, or maybe having Erica, you could come and you could report directly to the Extension Committee in Door County, as opposed to holding another big statewide meeting at this time. And if things loosen up, maybe we could do a statewide meeting or a 2-county meeting later in the fall. So I'm not like canceling. I wouldn't be interested in canceling it. I'm just wondering if we should consider postponing it to another point until we have the full staff on in Door County. And so I'm throwing that out there for discussion, questions, and from anybody.
Maybe we should have that meeting sooner than later, the way things are going.
Well, we're still around.
It's hard. Just on that particular issue, and I don't want to step on Erica's toes here, if you've already kind of thought a little bit about, a possibility of having the meeting and where it might be and that sort of thing. But I did contact, or I had talked, and as late as just last night, I talked with Lee Kinnard about possibility of that joint meeting could be there. I mean, he has a fairly large meeting area upstairs in that, in his, you know, above the milking parlor, and they could view that. But I guess I was more thinking about his new digester system, which is gonna be introducing, you know, the gases from that into that pipeline. It's fully functional and running, and he told me last night he'd be more than happy to have the group come there. Now, whether or not that's in September or it's pushed back into November, December, you know, I guess this is all, I get, my thoughts on that part of it, or the schedule would be, I think we should wait maybe another month, or, you know, we can make this decision in August. I mean, to whether or not we want to go into, you know, have that joint meeting in September or not, I think that's probably enough time yet. And from what Lee told me last night, he's anytime. You just tell him and he'll clear the schedule for it. Like I said, I don't want to step on Erica's toes if you've already thought about it and had something else lined up.
Well, I've actually already reached out to Lee about this, so that's actually the place I wanted to have it this year. I don't know how the tour would actually go because from their main office to where those digesters are, it's about oh, close to a half a mile. And, you know, we'd need to get into the bus and everybody would need to wear masks. And I think we'd have to limit how many people went on the bus at a certain time or whatever, just so we're following UW-Madison's guidelines, because they're pretty clear about what we're allowed to do and when and where and with who. So we might need to break the tour up into two.
I think, I guess my comment, it could be doable. It's going to take a lot of an extra work, but I think we have a little time here to think about it and back it up further. October, maybe then there's things that come up.
Yeah, the tour, everything would be the same, pretty much all the same in summer or in winter. So, I mean, it's not going to change the tour. It's not like going to PARS, and if you go in the winter, you're not going to see anything except for a bunch of sleeping trees. But yeah, at the dairy, everything will be the same regardless of the date or season.
Okay.
I want to see the sleeping trees.
So are we thinking we try to move this to October or November?
I guess my suggestion would be let's wait until next month and make the decision.
Oh, okay.
then, I think. With that.
Fine with me.
During the one part of that where we have the actual joint meeting, we would normally get a report from the PARS superintendent on everything that they've been doing. And I think if we give them a little more time to actually have something to report on while they've been here, besides the fact that they just showed up, I think that would be more amenable to Becky, who is the new PARS superintendent. She would have more time to throw more into her report and talk about what she has been working on and accomplished in the very short time she's been there. So I think we can postpone this discussion until next August, and I'll touch base with the people in Door County and see if they're wed to that particular date or not, and we can just decide then.
Part of it was with the postponement, that knowing that there's a lot goes on in September, especially now without having a Door County person there. I'm going to have a lot of extra responsibilities, which I already do, but it gets really, really busy at the beginning of September. And not having someone in Manitowoc County at that point as well is going to increase my workload. And I want to, I guess, try to keep that beginning of September a little less scheduled for things that may come up. Plus, I have corn dry down at the beginning of September.
If you need some extra hands to work on that corn dry down, maybe we could schedule the meeting around your corn dry down. We'd have 8 or 9 new people to help you.
You would never come back after that, I assure you. It's a dirty, sweaty, itchy job.
And she looks like she was working, I don't know where, in a burnt-off cane field or something.
I think that we had previously got this scheduled for September 11th or 10th, September 10th.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That Thursday?
I wouldn't mind changing it either because I'm not going to be able to be here on the 10th. So,
Oh, okay.
I'm not opposed to putting it off, till October or November. I was just thinking that, could we wait an extra month to make that decision? But
Sure.
sure.
if it seems like everybody wants to move it, that'd be fine.
I'll meet with the Door County Committee next week and see if they're willing to postpone it just to October. Pick a date. And that would, for their calendar of events and what's going on, that October would work just as well as September. Maybe even a little bit better because wouldn't be quite as crowded with their budget process. So it would work.
Okay,
Okay, so we'll make a final decision next month.
sure.
Okay, sounds good.
And I mentioned that we're trying to get back to meeting with larger numbers. The UW is still being very conservative because they're still very worried about their budget. The governor has announced that the 2021 budget picture, and he said this to all the municipalities, counties, and to all the state agencies too, is that it's going to be a tough year. There's going to be some difficult budget decisions that will have to be made. And that's really, I think everything is that is all behind why we're in this hiring freeze. It's going to slow everything down. And until they have a better idea how they're going to manage those reductions. And, yeah, they're, in all the counties that I work in and ones that I hear from my colleagues, there are not as many county budgets that are under a lot of stress this year, but they're also looking to 2021 as maybe a more difficult year because state aids to local governments might be reduced. That would be a big hurt. But the sales tax receipts reductions that Dora and Kewaunee were afraid might actually transpire and occur there have been reductions in the sales tax receipts, but they don't appear to have been as severe as we were afraid they could be. So counties are not doing that bad for this current budget year. But I think everybody's on call and on guard for 2021. So not much joyful news to report, but that'll about do it, Tom.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Rob? Okay, thanks. Next meeting dates, we will trying to stay with the first Wednesday, August 5th and September 2nd. Those sound okay?
Yep. Does to me.
Here. Rob,
That's on the calendars. Yep. That's
Sounds
been
good to
working.
you.
Yeah, I'll send someone.
okay, anything else anyone have? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Chuck, second by Gary to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. We are adjourned at 9:14.